Oh, mi fa solatito. Oh, hey there. I didn't see you there. What are we doing? The paint needs to dry on the bus, so I'm about to pull the bus out of this driveway and park it parallel to this street, on this street, and hopefully the sun will dry the paint. The only issue is that I've never driven this bus before, nor do I have any instruction on how to drive this bus. So, follow me. Give me a second.
Right there, you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream?
What did I think was originally wrong? I have no idea. I didn't know anything at the time.
Tell me what's wrong with the bus.
I couldn't tell you.
Okay, well, what's going on? Why are we doing this right now?
It just won't start, and there's a lot of possible problems.
Mean that there's why it's right,
Yeah,
it could be a wire, it could be an electrical issue.
It could be a lot of things.
It could be a lot of things.
What do you think this is going to set us?
The mechanic, even if he just comes here and turns the key and it starts, will be at least $300.
Yeah, but I'm talking about realistically.
No,
that's true though.
Do you know you have you have fuel?
Yeah, the fuel's still, we filled it up recently-ish.
That's what it sounded like to me. It sounds like there's just no.
It's like not empty. Last time I checked it was lowish.
Is there any way?
But if there's like stuff in there, it should be lighting.
I think that when they drove it up here, they overheated the engine, and somehow the temperature gauge is broken, so it didn't give them a warning light that they overheated it.
It could be like, there's a couple of things. It could be like the electricity. Like, you know, it might be like a good thing to have is like an ammeter. Or a multimeter, like just in general, because that way you could test the battery, you could test the wires.
So, normally we'd crank the key at the beginning and it would take like 5 seconds and then it would start. And that would scare us a little bit, but then it got to a point where as we cranked the key, you'd just hear the starter try, and I didn't even know what a starter was at that point. I just heard the sounds that weren't meaning that the car was starting.
Do you know if Uncle Rick knows anything about diesel engines? Because we're having a problem with the bus and we're trying to avoid calling a mechanic. Okay. Also, would Marty know anything?
So disconnect the battery, let everything out.
Yep.
Tighten it back up, none drips, let it sit for about a half hour to an hour. Reconnect the battery, it'll clear all the codes.
Right.
Then try to start it. If that light goes back on, you have water in your fuel, and you're probably going to have to change that filter.
Thank you. And
Thank you so much.
If I may ask one more question, which
Absolutely.
is just forward of that filter and above it by about 8 inches is a plastic tank. What is supposed to go in that tank? Because it looks like the level of fluid in that tank is also low.
Okay, so what I'm going to tell you is this. Go on YouTube.
Yep.
Type in whatever year and model it is.
Yep.
And type in whatever it says on there.
Diesel engine. The DT466E is an inline 6-cylinder, 7.6-liter turbocharged diesel engine.
The main fear that I would have in that situation with the bus not starting was that we've heard a lot that you can buy a bus and it will run well for a bit, but if it breaks down, it's going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars to fix, and that was just something that we were all a bit nervous of.
Well, I can tell you that taking that hose off the end is not going to do anything. This is the suspension. This is a 2002 engine. They might have put in a fail-safe that it won't start without coolant in it. That it basically, when Tay and Evan were in the city, they took out the heater core, or I think it's called the heater core. There's a big heater that runs the length of the bus, and they took it out. And in order to do this, they had to drain a lot of coolant out of the system But what I don't think they realized, what I know they didn't realize, is that was the same coolant that runs through the engine. So when they drained all of this, they completely drained the coolant tank from the engine. And then they drove about 600 miles up to Binghamton. And not only was it low, it was bone dry. There was like this tank of coolant that was completely empty. And I was convinced that they just like melted the engine. Do you want to see what happens? Is the key in there?
You want me to try and start it?
Yeah. But there's nothing catching.
Catching, you mean
So like
igniting?
you'd hear like a pop 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 or like something if it was lighting.
It turned out I was wrong, luckily. The engine did not melt.
Pericles, he overworks. It's alright, but that's why I'm here.
Okay. Sick.
So now we need to call a mechanic. It's at the mechanic calling time.
I still think it's at the find the air water filter, because I know if we walk
can
into a
find the
mechanic
water
and it's
separator,
just that, they're gonna charge us for everything else. I want to knock on that man's door tomorrow and plead we'll bring over a batch of cookies or something. Can we please speak to him first?
I have spent literally a good 6 hours trying to figure out where it is.
Yes, but we are not bus engineers. That
Oh,
man
if
is.
you want to knock on that man's door.
But you would be coming with me.
Orion is our neighbor who works on buses. He works for a local company that converts diesel buses into electric buses. I think we're gonna end up calling Big Al's garage.
Yes,
I'll humor you.
Because humoring me might save us $1,000.
I can't. There was a conflict between me and Perry. I cannot remember, but I would take an assumption that Pericles didn't want to call him, and I had to be. There's many times when Perry would say, "Okay, you do the talking," and I'll get up to the door. I'll go to do the talking, and he does the talking.
No, Tay's got a point though that we're gonna come in there not knowing anything about this
Yeah.
bus, and we're gonna look like idiots. And if they want to get money out of us,
go
they
in
will.
there? No. We have to go here. We can't move the
That's even worse.
Okay.
He's gonna see where we live.
problem, guy.
No, but even then, that's perfect. Even then, the conversation with him could be, look, this guy's coming at da-da-da time. Maybe when he comes, is there any chance you can, if you're around, be that voice where... Because he said he was down to help. He's already offered his help. And so I think someone with a bit of expertise, Big Al seems like a nice guy and all, but I don't know really
I know,
his
but
history.
the thing about this guy is this guy converts buses to electric engines.
Yes, but that definitely is how he started as a technician.
As a diesel technician?
Yeah, he says he's worked on diesel.
Oh, if he's worked on diesel, then we'll get him in here. So he knows a thing or two about buses, which was really funny, and he's a really nice guy. And he came over, and he was super willing to help us. He actually came over more than one time, and I called him several times late at night to soothe my fears. He heard the engine, the sound it was making as we tried to start it, and he concluded that basically it had to be an electrical issue. We took the batteries out. It had been freezing, so there was a chance maybe they were dead. But it turned out the batteries were fine. But in the process of taking the batteries out of the bus, someone had jury-rigged basically a little wire with a ring connector, and as we tried to take it off, that thing was so corroded that we ended up actually ripping off the end of the ring connector. And in order to put the batteries back on, we needed to fix that ring connector. We didn't know what the wire did, but we knew that it was there. So the next day we checked the batteries. The volts were fine, so we figured, okay, the batteries probably aren't dead. We put them back in, and I bought a little kind of clamp-on ring connector for the end of this wire. So basically the conclusion was that wire went to the solenoid on the starter, and because it had gotten corroded, it just wasn't getting enough juice, and therefore the starter just didn't have enough power to start this big, 6-cylinder diesel engine.
Check it out.
Ooh. Starting every time. Running beautifully. And so So originally, our budget I think is going to look at around like $21,000, which is kind of significant. So we need to go through her budget and kind of compare.
Okay, you're good. And
No more fun.
you look like Spider-Man. I don't like not seeing your fingers. It makes me really uncomfortable.
I
feel unsafe right now. Oh shit, you look like a fucking knight. Hello, Squire. BB.
Cutting that.